You either adapt or you become extinct. Tradition is dead. In this advanced business show, we discuss underground marketing strategies and tactics with top entrepreneurs that big business doesn't want you to know. You're listening to Dropping Diamonds with your host, Daniel Lizalde.
Hey, ¿qué pasa, familia? And welcome to another episode of Dropping Diamonds. Now, this is not another get-rich-quick show or any bullshit like that. So if that's what you're looking for, you might as well shut it off right here. What this is perspectives, tools, diamonds that you can apply to both your business and your life. So if that sounds like what you're looking for, enough said. Let's do this.
Yeah, mindless stories, mindless man. People mad when put in category, but make typical moves and get played like an accordion. I'm joyous. I'm reselling greatness, feel like Jordan. Great posture with the dialect. Plush where we residing at. We ain't shot the pilot yet. Got more spots to land at. More plots to plan, yeah. Transactions to scan.
Hey, ¿qué pasa, familia? And welcome to another episode of Dropping Diamonds. Now, today I am excited. I am pumped. We have a very special guest all the way from New York City. He is a former New York prosecutor, a lobbyist, and a legal media analyst. He has been featured on ABC News, Fox News, CBS News, MSNBC, and Today. I have the privilege and the pleasure to bring on super lawyer David Schwartz. David, how are you doing, brother?
Great to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on, David. I'm super super to bring you on the show. Today's going to be a little different, though. I've seen a lot of media that you've been in, and I'm sure you're used to people coming at you and just kind of just badgering and hammering at you. But today, I'd like to peel the layers back, and I want to get to know David Schwartz, the badass behind the super attorney. So with that said, my brother, tell me a little bit about your story. I mean, let's go back to your childhood. Is this something that you dreamt up? I mean, how did you stumble upon becoming just such a badass?
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, Daniel, and I appreciate the time here today. Yeah, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I went to public schools throughout my entire childhood. It was a very diverse upbringing. And it put me in touch with a lot of different kinds of people, and I really do believe I'm a connector, with different communities, different people, different cultures, and at a very young age, I saw that I liked the idea of being the advocate, representing people, representing interests. And so I fell in love with the whole idea of being a trial attorney at a very young age. I certainly wanted to be a trial attorney. I was in moot court, and that carried me through my childhood. And certainly when I had the opportunity to become a lawyer, I knew there were 99% of the areas of practicing law I knew were not for me. I knew the only kinds of areas. I always like to tell people I'm in the fun. I practice the fun law, even though it's a lot of work and it's a high pressure. I get great benefits out of representing people, being their advocate, whether it's in the courtroom or in the halls of the legislature. So at a young age, I definitely saw this happening.
Awesome. Now, take me back to developing that powerful mindset. I mean, how I see you on television. I see you just getting hammered, like I said in the introduction. Right. How are you keeping your cool, your calm, and you're just answering and being persuasive? How did you develop that mindset and those skill sets?
Yeah, it's certainly it's combative. That's for sure. I think throughout my life, I've always been standing up for. It's always been David versus Goliath type battles. I've always stirred up for the little guy, and you develop these argumentative skills as you go. I remember as a child arguing which baseball team I liked better, or who was a better baseball team. Was it the Yankees or the Mets? I was always a Yankee fan growing up, but you used to have passionate arguments about sports growing up, and just arguing with your friends all the time. And it's a very, Brooklyn is a very interesting place. Going to public school in Brooklyn, it's a very passionate place. And so, but certainly it does take a lot of work to develop those skills, those especially when you're getting hammered by the host or by your adversaries. And I take very unpopular positions sometimes. So a lot of people try to pile on to me in my criminal defense practice on TV. I'm always representing the underdog, and I'm always used to people trying to pile on me. The key to good advocacy is knowing your topic. You have knowledge is power. And so to know your topic, know it inside and out, know your case inside and out, that's how you become a great debater, by knowing your topic. So I think that's the number one skill, is preparation and knowing the law, knowing your topic, knowing your facts, whether it's on TV or you're actually trying a case. And I've tried a lot of cases in my career. The key always is knowing those facts, knowing the law, so it just comes out. So you don't have to look at a sheet of paper. That's
Gotcha.
when you know you're really representing your client properly.
David, you are just dropping diamonds right out the gate, brother.
I appreciate it, brother.
Awesome. Yes. Preparation. I definitely agree with preparation. That's definitely key. And in fact, a lot of things that we apply in business, I mean, I could just see it bleeding into different sections, and it's just applied differently. But yes, I definitely agree with preparation. So with that said, what are some of the obstacles that you had to face while you were moving through the ranks?
Okay, so my career started after law school. It started in the Brooklyn DA's office. And so that's where I really got my experience. And back then, it was a lot different back then in the mid-'90s. That's when I was in the Brooklyn DA's office. And in the mid-'90s, crime was at an all-time high in New York City. It was just about at a pinnacle, and it was going to start ticking down. I think it reached an all-time high in around 1993, 94, just when Mayor Giuliani took over, and I was in the thick of it. We had 2,100 homicides in New York City.
Wow.
I had a caseload of over 100 cases in my felony caseload, which is tremendous. You're only supposed to have, if you're trying felony cases in New York or anywhere, you really shouldn't have more than 20, 25 trial-ready cases in your caseload. So when I was trying the cases, I had over 100. I never knew which. Every day I had 6, 7 cases on the calendar, and I never knew which case was going to go to trial. That was intense work. It was such great experience, and I got so much trial experience. I rose through the ranks. I did the grand jury. I did investigations. You should have seen some of the cases we investigated. When you were in the investigative bureau in the Brooklyn DA's office, you were on call 24 hours a day. And like I said, there were 2,100 murders or homicides in New York. So I was out on homicides every single night. I was in East New York in apartments with the police detectives. There was blood everywhere. We were investigating the crime scenes. It was really insane. It was insane. And I was basically a 24, 25-year-old kid in the Brooklyn DA's office, but I was the highest. It was weird. You had these seasoned detectives with the NYPD. They were there for 30 years, but yet I was the attorney on the scene. So I was the highest ranking officer on the scene. And you certainly didn't feel like it with these seasoned detectives investigating these murder cases. And I would have to tell them, a lot of times it was a one witness murder case, which really aren't great cases when you have a witness that's on crack, witnessing a murder on the streets of East New York, and then I have to go tell the detectives, go find me more witnesses, at 4 a.m. So that was an incredible experience. And then I tried a lot of cases as I moved through the ranks in the DA's office. And then I would have stayed forever, but I started a family. My daughter was born. I have 2 daughters. So it was time I had to go out and make a few bucks. But I loved that job. It was such a great job. So then I joined and my bosses, I was really on a roll in the DA's office. So my bosses were really upset to see me leave, but I really had to go at that point. So then I became a criminal defense attorney, and I had a high volume criminal defense practice. I pretty much had a street practice in Brooklyn. I handled all kinds of cases, everything from homicides to DWI cases, to assault cases, to robbery cases. And there was plenty of it, and there was plenty of business, and I was out there, and I would investigate my own cases. A lot of times there wasn't enough money on the case to hire private investigators. Excuse me. So it was really incredible experience, both going into the DA's office and then becoming a criminal defense attorney, doing high volume cases. And then I was trying a murder case in Staten Island. I had represented a former cop accused of killing a corrections officer, and it was a horrible road rage incident. My client had horrible mental illness, and I was trying this case, and it just criminal defense work, really high volume, really gets to you after a while. So I had 2 back-to-back cases in Staten Island. That one ended up settling out, but then I had another case where an ex-cop was accused of killing his ex-wife, over his pension money, and it was done right in front of the daughter at the bus station in Staten Island. And I remember going to court. It was in the heart of the winter time. It was like 10 degrees out. I had my files. It's a young man's sport. It really is high volume criminal defense work. I remember going to the courthouse every single day, and I was booed. I had people, people out there just booing me every single day because obviously the community wanted my client convicted. And it just, it really, high volume criminal really does get to you after a while. So I kind of morphed my practice after that. And look, when I practice criminal law, I'm a sympathetic, in my own life, I have a lot of sympathy for people, and for animals. I have 2 dogs. We have 8 outdoor cats, that I take care of constantly. My wife and my children, I have a big heart, but, when it comes to, and people ask me, how do you do it? How do you represent these people accused of these horrific crimes? And I developed a skill where I'm really able to put that wall up where I kind of just don't even see the victim in the case anymore. And all I see is the Constitution of the United States of America. All I see is the 6th Amendment, the right to counsel, the right to passionate counsel, the way I interpret the 6th Amendment, the right to cross-examination, the right to cross-examine your accusers. And I think this is such a fundamental right in this country, the 6th Amendment. And I unfortunately, not everyone gets that. Unfortunately, people are sold out every single day in this country. Criminal defendants don't have their rights protected. Criminal defendants, they're just the accused. And it could be anyone.
Sure.
It could be us. It could be your loved ones. It could be your friends. And our society, we're too quick with labeling people as a criminal just because you're accused. And you see it especially on the high profile cases where just the accusation now, you're assumed guilty. And I've seen it really turn for the worse. I figured in my lifetime, you would see the pendulum switch, towards fairness, towards the right of the accused, towards proving your case, proving someone guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. But I've seen so much unfairness, and it's only getting worse and worse and worse. So I am a real true defender of that Sixth Amendment, and I believe in it. And so, no matter who the victim is, I could put myself beyond that, and knowing that I am an important cog in the system. I am an important part of the scales of justice. So the scales of justice don't always tip in favor of the government.
Absolutely.
Those scales are meant to be balanced. When you look at those scales of justice, and the only thing that protects those scales from balancing in the direction of the government every single time is me, the person representing the accused. So I take that job very seriously, and I'm able to look beyond the most sympathetic victims, whether it's a rape victim. I just had a series of rape cases that I've tried. And so that's how I do it. That's how I justify it and how I do it.
Okay, so talking about government, right? And I know you're an advocate for a lot of businesses and community.
Yes.
Now, what does a business manager do if, let's say, a government agency is knocking on their door, and let's say one of their employees have landed on a website that they're not supposed to? Something happened there where it raised the red flag, and government officials are coming at you, at your business. What advice would you give that business?
Yeah, and that does happen a lot. And just to finish up, so I'll finish up quickly how I even got into this. So I used to do high volume criminal defense, and then I became very political, and it morphed into a lobbying government relations practice where, like you just said, I represent businesses, trade associations, not-for-profits, and I'm the only registered lobbyist in New York who also tries cases. So I actually do both. My firm is divided into two general practice areas: the lobbying government relations practice and the litigation practice, where we try and we litigate civil and criminal cases. So I don't do the high volume criminal defense anymore, but I have more of a boutique criminal practice where I do still try on average around one case a year. And I certainly handle multiple cases a year, but I have morphed into other things. So now, to get to your question, so the listeners don't get confused by my so that's how I morphed from high volume criminal defense into the question that you just asked me. So I do represent a lot of businesses, and businesses are being attacked by government. And the scenario that you set up is, let's say somebody in the business is on a website that they shouldn't be on. I get, maybe a child pornography website, let's say, and they're doing it from the business. That creates an interesting case of liability. Certainly members of the FBI may be knocking at your door. And it's very key that, especially when you don't know why the FBI is knocking at your door, whether it's your personal door in your residence or in your business. That's why the first answer out of your mouth should be is, I have an attorney. If you don't have a search warrant, I may want to talk to you in the future, but I'm not going to talk to you without my attorney being present. And that's very important for multiple reasons. Number one, you just don't want to talk to an investigative agency, a member of the government, without your attorney being present. You just don't want to do that. It's too risky. It's too risky for the business. It's too risky that you're going to incriminate yourself. You may incriminate others, but also you may not even be guilty of any kind of crime. And the scenario that you just set up was, maybe the business owner doesn't know that their employee is engaging in bad acts. So, but let's say the business owner then has a conversation with the FBI and makes false statements. Well, guess what? Making false statements to a federal agent is a crime. It's USC 1003. It's a crime.
Absolutely.
And that's we've seen so many people go down on that crime. In fact, it's that crime that has taken down so many. The case that everybody seems to know about is the Martha Stewart case, where she was accused of all types of securities fraud, insider trading, all of that. In fact, all those charges were dismissed. The only one that stuck was the lying to the government. And she ended up doing 6 months in prison for that. So you got to be very careful. You got to be very careful. You want to communicate with the government through your attorneys. And that's why people call me up to do that job and to straighten things out and to do what's known as an attorney proffer. So what we want to do is the FBI agent can't offer any type of immunity in that situation. So we want to get beyond the FBI agent in that situation. Usually, in almost every federal investigation, there's a U.S. attorney that's also involved with the case. So that business owner would call me up. I would call the U.S. attorney up and try to get a little idea of what the investigation is about. And at that point, I would tell the U.S. attorney, okay, I need a little while to do my own due diligence, to do my own investigation. And that's when I would, interview my client and any employees. And in that case, if I saw that the employee was the one that was committing the criminal act, I would certainly advise my client to fire that person immediately. That person certainly should get their own counsel. And at that point, we may set up a cooperation with the U.S. attorney, making sure that my client got full immunity in that situation. And the client would probably cooperate and tell the truth to the U.S. attorney so they could go after the real bad actor in that scenario. But that scenario certainly could take a lot of different roads, right, Daniel?
Sure.
So my advice always in that general scenario is you got to get your attorney involved immediately. Don't make any statements to the police. Don't make any statements to the FBI. Protect your rights no matter how smart you think you are. No matter how much you think you could talk your way out of it, you probably can't. And so that's my advice in that situation.
Okay. So following that up, okay, because I know when you're not trying to sit and you're not trying to talk, or sometimes people feel like, hey, I need, even, let's say they're innocent, they want to explain themselves, but they put themselves or paint themselves into a corner. So you're saying do not talk to the government agency. So even so the question is, if they're insisting or they're trying to be a little suave to get you to talk, I mean, what is your response to them? Just nope.
I'm represented by counsel. I would, if you want, I'll call my attorney up right now and they'll get me on the phone. But unless they have a search warrant, unless they're not even allowed, on the premises.
Okay.
So I mean, if it's another government agency and they have the right to search a grocery, let's say that it's the Department of Health and they're searching a grocery store. Well, certainly they have the right to search the grocery store, but you always have the right not to speak to a government agent without an attorney being present. And there's just too many pitfalls. So
Sure.
I always advise clients not to speak to the government without an attorney present. Now, in minor situations, it may make more sense for the business, like let's say it's a Department of Health issue and there may be a minor, I've had, there may be minor violations with the Department of Health. Well, in that situation, certainly it may help where the business owner, the restaurant owner, is dealing directly with the department, with the agent, and the agent is telling them, okay, clean this up, clean that up, and I'll come reinspect in 20 days. On things like that, it's certainly permissible to speak to the government agent. But where it's an investigative agency and they're looking to take you down, don't try to talk your way out of it. Don't try to talk your way out of it. And if you're being arrested for a crime, you're being arrested or you are the one that's being investigated, always tell them that you have an attorney. There's going to be very rarely can you talk your way out of it in that situation. You're much better off getting your attorney and taking the arrest at that point, not making any statements. And that's what I would always advise anyone to do.
Absolutely. So David, let's talk about establishing strategic relationships. You've definitely moved your way through the ranks. What advice would you give either business owners or either up and coming attorneys that are trying to push their way up through the ranks? I mean, let's talk about relationships, and then also I'm going to go ahead and add another facet to that question. And then let's talk about being at an event, right? And instead of just sitting around or handing the card to the person to your right or to your left and just kind of being just immobile, you're out and about, you're talking, give us some advice, help these people out.
Yeah.
Tell them what they need to do.
Okay. All right. So I think this is a networking type of question, and I've spoken a lot about this. When you're at an event, I don't care what the event is. It could be a political event. It could be a general event. It could be an event for a not-for-profit. I view events as real opportunities to make connections. And if you get out of your comfort zone, you get out of that comfort zone, no matter what you do, something good is going to happen. Every time I go out, in fact, I'm contemplating tonight whether I want to schlep into the city tonight to go to this event. And sometimes I have to force myself because I don't always want to. It's raining here in New York today. I'd rather stay home with my family.
Sure.
And I may just do that actually. But you got to decide. So if you're out at an event, you got to make it worthwhile. You can't just sit in a corner and just show up because you were invited. You got to make it. You got to make it happen. There's a lot of people at that event, at almost any event that you go to, that can help you in some sort of way. And helping you means that you may be helping them too. And it works. It works both ways. You got to give to get. So,
Absolutely.
and I'm a firm believer in that. And so when it comes to networking, even if you're not in the mood, even if you're scared, it's not the most comfortable thing. But you really, when you're at this event, you almost have a license to go up to other people, hand your cards out, and explain to them who you are, what you do, figure out what they do, and see where you can make that connection. Because that's where, and I don't care if you're a business like me. I'm a business owner, and I'm always looking for more clients, right?
Sure.
So in that room are my future clients. And that's the way I view it. However, if you're someone that's looking for a new job, your new job is in that room. I guarantee it. I lecture college students all the time on this issue. They're very busy on, what do you call that? daddymonster.com, all these job sites. They're always putting their resume out, and they're emailing, and it's going to 1,000 people, and it's random. And the person's getting 1,000 resumes and all this electronic communication. But really, your next job is by being out, going out as much as possible, and being in rooms, being in events, and a lot of them are free events too. Being in places where there's as many opportunities as possible.
I love that. I absolutely love that, David.
So yeah, and so with let's say you're a college student and you're interested in politics. Well, you should be at as many political events as possible, and a lot of them are free. And so what I would always advise is, if you do that for a week and you make a card up, you make your own business card up with your cell number, and you get out of your comfort zone and you walk up to each person at that political event, I guarantee you within a week you're going to have a new job. I guarantee it, because that's how you get the job, is through the personal connections and personal relationships. That's where jobs are gotten. So if you're looking for a job, that's where you get it. If you're looking for new clients, you got to get out there and meet people and get out of your comfort zone.
Absolutely. So David, let me ask you this question. So how does David draft a persuasive argument?
Okay. So I have an unusual career. So right now I'm a registered lobbyist in New York and in Washington, D.C., and I'm also a trial attorney. And people ask me, well, what brings those two together? It seems like an odd combination. It's not an odd combination at all. It's all because there's one focal point between both. It's all about advocacy. advocacy, advocacy, advocacy. So whether I'm in the halls of the legislature trying to move an issue forward for a client as a lobbyist, or I'm in the court of law arguing a case on behalf of a civil or a criminal client, the one central skill set is advocacy. So the question is, how do I prepare? How do you get prepared? And you have to do as much research as possible on the issue. You need to know the issue more than your adversary. You need to, whether you're explaining the issue to a judge or to a New York State senator or a United States state senator, you need to know the issue more than they do. You need to be able to answer any questions right off the top of your head. That is the best type of advocacy, where knowledge is power. So the best way to prepare is always to, read as many materials as possible, take a deep dive into the subject matter, make sure you know your key points, cold. You don't want to sit there and read the materials. You want to know all your points cold. And when you know your points cold, you could argue any aspect of it. And certainly when I argue on TV, that's the easiest kind, because it's the least intensive, because the questions are going to be so general that you're going to be able to get your main points out. So in a situation like that, when you're on TV and you only have a couple of minutes to make your points, you got to know your key points, and you don't get too far into the weeds. Just make sure you get your strongest arguments out and get it on the table. If you're in court and you're arguing a criminal case, or you're even trying a case, to me that's the mother lode when it comes to preparation.
Gotcha.
Because you're preparing for each witness, you're preparing the cross examinations, you're preparing your arguments in front of the judge. There are so many moving parts during a criminal trial. You need to be prepared for everything. I'm telling you, I don't sleep during a criminal trial. If I have a 3-week trial, I'm sleeping 3 hours every night, because I am preparing so much for each witness. I'm anticipating questions. I'm anticipating pitfalls. If you can anticipate as many pitfalls as possible, that'll make you prepared. And you also need to know, the other part of preparation is you need to know where your weaknesses are. Too many people disregard their own weaknesses in their case, and they just concentrate on how they're going to defeat their opponent, on getting their opponent, and concentrating on only your strengths. But you're really taking your legs out by not understanding your weaknesses. So when I try a case, I need to make sure that if I were the district attorney trying the case, then I could try their case too. Every time I'm on trial, I could actually try both sides. So I see the district attorney's side as well.
Yeah.
So I say to myself, I could try their case, and I know what questions to ask, because by preparing that way, and in a civil case, if you represent the plaintiff, you should be able to try the defendant's case just as well as you could try your own case. When you could try the other side's case, and you could point out and isolate the weaknesses in your own case, that's when you know you've reached the point of preparation, and that's how you know that you're prepared for anything when you go into the fight.
David, that is freaking badass, brother. It really is. And I just want to highlight, that's why you are the super attorney that you are, because not only are you prepared for yourself, but you're also prepared for the other side as well. And I think that is so, so, so powerful. So with that said, I want to touch on the Uber disabled riders case. I know in 2014, the Taxis and Limousine Commission agreed to a settlement in a federal class action case that they would increase their fleet by 50% for disabled. Let's touch on that a little bit. What's going on with that in regards to Uber?
Right. So it's unequal treatment right now. Uber's like the old Wild West. So what we have is, in this decision in which my clients didn't even have a chance to have a say in that decision. It was the TLC, which mandated 50% wheelchair accessible by 2020, which is very admirable. And my clients are actually for that. What they're not for, and my clients, meaning I represent all the taxi medallions in New York City, and we also have, this is where I combine the law with the lobbying, because we also take civil cases against Uber, and I had a very interesting decision, which you talked about, the Elizabeth Ramos case, which I'll get to later on.
Sure.
But so what we're saying, what we're lobbying for now, we have some, and I believe we've changed the tide in New York City. We're lobbying for a mandate that Uber get treated fairly, just like the taxi cabs. So the taxi cabs have the medallions in New York City. They have they have hundreds of regulations that they have to abide by. Uber has none. And so what's happened, and I got to give you a little history before I get into the question. What the taxi, the iconic yellow cab in New York City has been around for a long, long time. And the medallion system was set up to protect passengers. So what happened was these medallions increased in value, and 60% of the medallion holders in New York City are owner operated. So that means that, these are people living the American dream. These are people that were able to get money to buy one medallion and finance the medallion. So the medallions were worth, they went from, excuse me, they were worth it just a few years ago, $1.3 million. And because of Uber and Lyft becoming the old Wild West here and taking over the streets of Manhattan, when it was really the taxi cab medallions that they paid money to have that monopoly where someone puts their arm up in the air and they hail a cab. And that was a paid for monopoly that only the yellow cabs should be able to pick up hailed passengers. Well, what happened was Uber came out with the disruptive technology, and they flooded the streets of New York. And now we have 13,000 medallions, yellow cabs on the streets of the city of New York. And there's only 13,000 medallions, but there's probably only 9 or 10,000 medallions out in the streets. There's over 100,000 Ubers on the streets of New York.
Wow.
So when Mayor de Blasio is trying to figure out, why the streets are so clogged up, it's because of these Ubers. And they're on every street, and they're waiting for the electronic hail, and they're there within seconds to pick up the passengers. Now, Uber works well, and I support Uber in places where there's not an organized medallion system, like in the suburbs and the outer boroughs and other places in America where it's not, you can't just put your arm up and catch a cab. But when you're in the middle of Manhattan, we have a system set up, and these people paid $1 million for that right, for that medallion. And now the medallions have been devalued to about $200,000, some even going for $175,000. So they've lost their life savings because they bought something for $1 million. They got the financing for it. So they were able to, so really all you had to do was come up with, if you saved enough money, you had like $100,000 or even less, because there was a lot of lenders, lending on 100% of the medallion, because what was happening was, for so long, the medallion was going up in value, that let's say that the medallion was $1 million, they would lend you the full $1 million for the medallion, thinking that the medallion was going up in value anyway. Well, lo and behold, the medallion dropped beyond belief. So now you have all these foreclosures going on, and you have all these people that have lost their life savings because they've lost their medallions. So to get back to the case, the court, there was a settlement with the TLC, 50% wheelchair accessible, and now Uber does not abide by that, because they're not covered under that decision. We've been advocating that they need to be wheelchair accessible too, since they've stolen all the business. And we feel, the cabs feel, they could compete fairly with Uber if Uber just had the same reasonable regulations that the cab has. So what happened in the Ramos? So still, Uber cannot discriminate against the physically disabled. So Elizabeth Ramos is a physically disabled woman. She called Uber multiple times, and they never showed up to pick her up. And we're claiming, in a nutshell, that Uber discriminates against people the physically disabled when they're obligated to pick them up. So we have a case against Uber right now. But what was interesting about that case is my law firm made new law on that case.
Wow.
Because everywhere when you have the in Uber, within when you're pressing the button in the fine print on it, they have all these excuse me, different keys you could strike onto. Somewhere embedded in the Uber agreement is an arbitration clause, meaning you can't sue Uber, right? So they somewhere they're claiming that you sign off that you can't sue them, that you're forced to go into arbitration. And they've been successful on this arbitration clause throughout the country in dozens and dozens of cases. They've been successful. The courts have upheld the arbitration clause, and the courts are very, they always favor arbitration. The courts, if you sign off on arbitration, the courts favor arbitration.
Sure.
But what happened in our Brooklyn case was we won. The Uber brought a motion to dismiss. We challenged it, and we showed the court how unconscionable and how unfair that arbitration clause is. And we were the first firm in the country, very proud of this decision, to defeat Uber on the arbitration clause. The judge said, no. This is an unconscionable clause. The passenger clearly didn't sign off on this. The passenger, it's so embedded into their contract. The passenger didn't see it. It's unfair clause. No one signed off to it, and I'm not allowing it. And the case is going forward. The case will be litigated in Brooklyn Supreme Court. So we were the first ones to win that. I got calls from law firms all over the country trying to see our papers. I sent papers to dozens and dozens of law firms all over the country. We were written up in the New York Law Journal, and very proud of that decision. And in fact, then there was an appellate decision about 3 weeks later, which supported our decision in another jurisdiction. But lo and behold, they used a lot of the language we put in our decision. So I don't know if the appellate court copied our language, but I'd like to think that our papers had something to do with the decision that they made in the other jurisdiction. So that was a lot of fun winning that decision. And we created new law for passengers. And it was an important decision because no passenger suing Uber. Look at all the cases out there against Uber right now. There's assault cases. There's discrimination cases. All kinds of cases against Uber. And it's really the old Wild West out there. And they really don't screen their drivers they really don't do a thorough screening job. And there's a lot of problems there, and you should be able to sue them in court. And that was a great win for us.
Right on, brother. So, David, before I ask you the last question, how can my audience connect with you?
That's great. So my phone number in the office is 516-880-8170. My Twitter feed is at Schwartz Defense. Our website is, we have a couple websites because we have the lobbying firm and the law firm. So our lobbying firm is called Gotham Government Relations and Communications. And we didn't get a chance to talk too much about that, but we're a general lobbying government relations firm. And really, we're an advocacy firm. So when your business or trade association or not-for-profit is up against the wall, it's being attacked by the government, and you want legislation, or you need to defend against horrible legislation, or you have administrative agency problems, call us. And our website is GothamGR.com. That's Gotham Government Relations, so it's GothamGR.com. And my email address is dschwartz@gothamgr.com. And my law firm is Gersman Schwartz LLP. My super partner, Brad Gersman, who I didn't get a chance to talk about, he's one of my heroes. He's just an incredible lobbyist. He does mostly lobbying work. I do both, and he's just an incredible advocate and really a terrific negotiator too. He's brought, some of the biggest companies in the world down to their knees through his incredible negotiating style. And he's a great lawyer too. So I'm very proud of my firm and the team that we have, Daniel. And thanks for letting me tell the audience about that and letting me give them my contact information.
Oh, you're very welcome. In fact, I'm going to put you on my speed dial because I need a pit bull in my corner. And just to
Thank you.
just to let you guys know, so Donald Trump has an attorney, Michael Cohen, and David is Michael's attorney. So if a pit bull has a pit bull, that's David. So I'm definitely programming you in my phone, David, because I need a solid pit bull in my corner. So I would highly suggest you get,
I appreciate that. Let me clarify that, though. I had a couple of cases with Michael Cohen. I'm still advising him, but I'm not handling the investigation in the Southern District. We have a former Southern District. He was former head of the criminal division there, so he's handling that case. I'm still advising him, but just for clarification, I also represented Donald Trump in the past as well, and the Trump organization. So I'm kind of, now that it may be taking there's sort of an adverse relationship there, I'm kind of conflicted out of Michael Cohen because I've represented both of them over the last 6 years. Just to clarify that for the audience.
Absolutely. Okay, brother. So my last question to you is, why do you think it's so important for media advocacy, for community, for businesses to unite?
Yeah. It's sort of, I kind of got this from the union model. I've always admired the unions of this country, even though I'm fighting against them a lot. But I've always admired their advocacy because the unions, believe it or not, the unions are more powerful than the largest companies in they're better advocates. And I've always admired the concept of doing a rally, a grassroots rally. We've done so many of them, but they're able to get all like the teachers union. They're such a powerful union. So a lot of times I model my advocacy on what the unions do, but I do it for other organizations, whether it's a not-for-profit or businesses, like for my taxi cabs. Why can't my taxi cabs be as strong of a voice as the union? And I tell them, you can be. You just have to unite. So if you look at some of the rallies that we've done on taxi cabs at City Hall, hundreds, maybe even 1,000 taxi cabs and medallion owners and drivers, and we get them out there, and we get the horns, and we get the rally going, and the speakers. And so it's so important to rally the troops to get the media, getting to your question, to get the media involved. When you have a big rally at City Hall, that makes an impression, and you get the media down there. So not in every situation, but in many, many situations, media advocacy is really important. When a business is being really screwed, like the taxi cabs are in New York, like so many of my other clients, I mean, I could go down the line, the independent beer distributors, I could go down every issue that I have. My clients, are getting hurt by government policies. So what do you do? Certainly there's a lot of tools in the tool belt. So the tool belt has general lobbying. That's important. General lobbying is important. But one of the other tools in the tool belt is certainly media advocacy. You want to shine the light on that government agency. You want to shine the light on your adversary, and you want to use the media. You want to get op-eds written. You want to get network TV to cover your issue. You want to get cable TV to cover your issue. You want to get the New York Times, the Washington Post, whatever your local newspapers are. You want to have them covering that issue, and you want to spin it. You want to be able to get the ear of the writer or the host, and you want to be able to make sure that your point of view is well represented. I have a client that's been a construction client. He's been beaten up on for the last 10 years. And you know what? When I got involved, he continues to get beaten up, but at least his side of the story is now being told in the court of public opinion. So that's why it's important, for people like Michael Cohen. This case, he's got issues, but there's certainly a court of public opinion. And that court of public opinion, you need to have your advocacy done, in that court in many, many times, because what it'll do is it'll shine the light on the government agency. It'll shine the light on your adversary, and it'll help you win the day. Nobody wants to answer to a reporter or to a camera. So we, in my firm, we use the media all the time as one of the tools in the lobbying tool belt. That, along with social media, media advocacy, grassroots rallies, lobbying. It takes a lot to get one thing done. And you also mentioned before strategic relationships. Strategic relationships are key. Finding other people who are also being adversely affected. Finding other organizations that are, for instance, I once had a tobacco issue that I was working on. And lo and behold, it was about untaxed cigarettes. Billions of dollars lost due to untaxed cigarettes. Guess what? I got the American Cancer Society to side with me. When have you ever seen a tobacco interest siding with the American Cancer Society? Strange bedfellows, right? But I got
Yes.
the two of them to side together on the issue of untaxed cigarettes. So you may have very strange bedfellows, in this world of advocacy. So don't overlook anybody and any kind of strategic relationship. So when you're lobbying an issue out there. So media advocacy, very, very important.
Right on, brother. Well, David, thank you so much for coming on to Drop in Diamonds. You absolutely came and dropped major diamonds in value. So I want to thank you guys so much for listening to Drop in Diamonds. We are on iTunes, we are on Stitcher, and I'm most active on Instagram. You can find us at dropindiamonds.com, or you could search Drop in Diamonds. Thank you guys so much. Take care. So I want to thank you guys so much for listening to Droppin' Diamonds. David came on and was dropping some mad diamonds, some mad value. David's talking about getting out of your comfort zone and meeting new people, new connections, getting yourself so prepared with your topic that you know your point's cold. Knowledge is power, my friends. And last, media advocacy, grassroots rallying, creating community, coming together and shining the light on topics, and creating a change in your community for the good, my friends. So you've been listening to Droppin' Diamonds with Daniel Lizalde. Now, if you've gotten any value from this show, please recommend it to a like-minded friend or family member who's looking for growth or looking to level up. Now, this is a real community, a real family. So if you've been here a while, thank you. And if you're new, welcome. Now, our mission is to impact 1 billion people worldwide by giving them the perspectives, the tools, and the diamonds, the information, if you will, so that they can realize growth in their lives and in their businesses. Now, we can't do this alone. We need you guys to spread the word, familia. We need community. Now, with that, we release a new episode every Monday on iTunes and Stitcher, and we're most active on Instagram. Just search Droppin' Diamonds. And with that said, you can also find us on our website at dropindiamonds.com. So I'd like to personally thank Ray Fonder for the badass music that you heard on the intro. And last, remember, familia, time and pressure create diamonds. So be patient and relentless as you deploy your strategies and your tactics. Adios, familia.
You've been listening to Dropping Diamonds with your host, Daniel Lizalde.